What a season it's been so far for the Mustang Challenge North America, and here this weekend we bring the whole field, all 18 cars, for two 45-minute races to one of the classic circuits in North America. Hello everybody, my name's John Hindorf, and alongside me in the Ford Racing Global Broadcast Centre is Arjuna Kankaparty. We'll hear from him in a moment. Our Mustang Challenge North America coverage brought to you by Ford Racing. Little bit of high clouds, but it's pretty decent. Weather didn't play ball yesterday for our qualifying. In fact, we didn't get any qualifying, so IMSA and the Mustang Challenge North America have fallen back onto a well-defined course of action, and that is we have set the grid by championship points. More of that when we get to our Ford Racing grid in a moment. But let's talk about this classic venue. It's one of my favourite places to come. It took me far too long to get up here to Watkins Glen International in my following of the American sports car scene. 11 corners, and there's a bit of everything, and we're using the full old Grand Prix circuit as it used to. So once we've gone through the inner loop, the bus stop chicane if you will, and through the parabolic left-hander down the short chute into the toe and the heel of the boot, the full old track that you've seen all those great pictures on, and then we wind our way back to the start-finish line. And by the way, that start when we come to the green flag, downhill, turn one, always a chance for a bit of action there. Let's quickly go through our Ford Racing starting grid then. In the Dark Horse Legends, Nick Smither is on the inside of row number 5. Paolo Salvatore and Oleg Gorshov are on row number 4. On row 3, Drew Norbeyer and Stephen Weiser. Walter Bobko and Joe Dedricks are on row 3, and Chris Clark and Tom Tate are on row number 1, excuse me, with Tom Tate for Wheelhouse Motorsport. Now, that's not an earned pole position, remember. That's come from his championship positions. There are also 9 cars in the Dark Horse Legend. So, on the inside of row number 5, it's Ethan Lowe for Flying Lion. Colin Harrison and Ryan Persing are on row 4. Doug Peterson and Tate Pritt are on row 3. Will Lucas and Sandy Sotelo, 2 Wheelhouse Motorsport teammates, on row 2, and Devin Anderson and Cole Lofgard are on the front with the round 3 racing driver Cole Lofgard on pole position in the number 42. Track temperature sits at 40 Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Air temperature at temperate 24 degrees Celsius. 45 minutes on the clock. There'll be people tuning in on our Ford Racing coverage from Europe in particular, where they are sweltering at the same air temperature as the track temperature is here. Arjuna Kankaparty, the story so far for Mustang Challenge North America. Let's start with the front of the field and Dark Horse Legends. Cole Lofgard gets the pole position by dint of his championship position, and he's been pretty good this year.
And talking to the Dark Horse drivers, Cole Lofgard, Devin Anderson, who only split by 90 points in the championship, John. A set of drivers with calm confidence on their side. Cole Lofgard spent the weekend at Mid-Ohio dealing with powertrain delivery issues, but despite that, he extended the championship lead over Devin Anderson, who told me he's struggling to figure out when to go for a car with short-run pace versus long-run pace. Whatever call he makes, it seems to be the wrong one. And as we head into the second half of the season, he knows that to challenge Cole Lofgard, getting that sorted is going to be key.
And in Dark Horse Legends, Tom Tate and Chris Clark are on the front row. Again, they're at the front of the championship.
And talking to Guy Cosmo, the driver coach for Tom Tate, the instruction was simple: stay out of trouble, because the championship lead in Dark Horse Legends has been thrown around and bandied about between Tate and Clark. And with some hectic races left to come, Virginia International Raceway and the Circuit of the Americas, Dark Horse Legends could come down to the wire like it did last year.
Stay out of trouble. Guy Cosmo. when I see you next time, I'm going to have a word with you about that. Easy to say, far more difficult to do. 18 cars, 9 in each of the 2 categories. The cars are identical. The categories are decided by the experience and the age of the drivers. The Dark Horse cars have the red number backgrounds and they'll come to the line first. It's a little bit untidy in the midfield, but the green flag is in the air, and 45 minutes of Mustang Challenge North America here at the Sill and 6 hours of the Glen weekend gets underway. Pretty even break down towards the first corner, and the round 3 racing car gets a decent start down through that braking area into turn 1. Always tricky on cold tyres, and it is that number 42 round 3 racing car from pole position who's converted. A little bit of side-by-side action down the field, and that's the Nick Smithers run car. Now Nick's made up a couple of places at least from the back of the grid as he was going through there. I think that was Paolo Salvatore and Oleg Gorshov who he was getting amongst. Got to keep an eye on that. And the orange and dark grey, number 21, is Colin Harrison for Tech Sport Racing. But at the front of the field, Arjuna, Loftsgaard, Anderson, Sandy Satulo. It is absolutely the usual suspects at the sharp end.
And Sandy Satulo performing double duty this weekend. He's also racing in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and his first weekend actually in a GT4 car ever, but he's got a great side in front of him as Devin Anderson seems to have fired off the tyres quite well as we work through the boot, over the toe and up towards the heel. Loftsgaard forced to go defensive, and signs of a fight early on.
Gets to the rear quarter panel of the leader. Devin Anderson will try and tough it out round the left-hand side. Left-hand corner coming up next. He'll get the line, and that could be the change of lead. It is. And the car, do you know, I've just realised it's 30 years of the original Top Gun, and I've just realised that Tech Sport livery reminds me of Maverick's helmet colours with the multicoloured dark blue, white and red striping down the side. The lead changed for 2 of the corners on the 11 corner circuit. Loftsgaard's back in front, but quite clearly Devin Anderson feels the need for speed and comes round the outside and down towards the first corner again. But the leader in the Trimtex 42 is Cole Loftsgaard. 2 red, white and blue cars in very different liveries. The star on the side of the 42 is in the ascendancy for Cole Loftsgaard, and he holds onto it. And do not count out the first of the wheelhouse cars in 3rd place. That's Sandy Satulo.
And this is an interesting track to challenge these drivers with. Not many heavy braking zones, and so the concertina that we sometimes see into and out of corners is not going to separate these cars as much. And through the bus stop chicane, Devin Anderson trying to stay as close to the back of the leaders as possible. However, look at the top 3. They've broken away. Will Lucas and Ethan Lowe back in the Flying Lion, number 25. After he got called up to Mid-Ohio. He's doing great, and they're currently squabbling for 4th and 5th positions, but 3 seconds down the road.
That is a very good break indeed, and Satulo just in turn number 6 at the end of that short chute. That's another difficult downhill corner, and the camber helps you for a little while. The way that the track lies helps you for a little while, but if you get offline, it's actually pushing you towards the outside of the corner, and he's dropped a couple of 3 Mustangs lengths now. These Dark Horse R's built and modified from the car that you can go to your Ford dealership and put your money down and drive away. 6-speed Tramec gearbox, mechanical limited slip differential, beautiful V8, normally aspirated engine that punches out in the US Dark Horse just under 500 horsepower. Over in Europe it's down to just on 450, but trust me, that is plenty enough, and it is the best way of getting as close to a racing car as you can. And Will Lucas has got problems. He's travelling very, very slowly indeed in the number 84 car. He's just turned it off and back on again. This is one of the wheelhouse cars, and he's gone straight on. He's going behind the wall at, that must be turn 8, I reckon. And that is a disaster for Will Lucas in that wheelhouse motor racing car.
We got word that he had gone off the track, I think, at turn 5, and so that's coming out straight after the bus stop chicane through the outer loop. Not a place that you want to have an issue. The corner of the car that we caught a glimpse of looked relatively unscathed, so wondering if, like you said, he was attempting to do the Control-Alt-Delete and it wasn't firing back up as he would have hoped. But the 2025 Mustang Cup champion, who had started to find some rhythm in the mid part of the season, John, just as quickly as he found it, the momentum slips away.
Mustang Cup is the, if you will, the complementary series to Mustang Challenge. Same car, they run on a slightly different tyre. Run over with our colleagues at SCCA. You can split your time across the weekend with a friend or a colleague or a family member. And Will has come up through that series, so he knows the car. He's been learning the Michelin tyre that we have here in Mustang Challenge, and that is not the way he wanted his weekend here at the classic upstate New York circuit to get underway. Another race for him tomorrow to perhaps redeem himself as the leaders. Now with a little bit of a gap, we're talking about a second, I'd say now, between the leading pair and Sandy Satulo. Yeah, 1.1 seconds, and then there's another 2.5 back to Ethan Law, who's in a fairly lonely fourth position. Tate Pritt and Ryan Persing's having a good run, and Chris Clark in the white and blue Mustang. This is the number 9 Paley Motorsport with AR, and he's heading up the hill at the moment, and that car looking very stable indeed. He leads the Dark Horse Legends. Tom Tate is about a second behind them, and they've put Colin Harrison and Doug Peterson, two of the Dark Horse drivers, they've put them to the sword pretty early on there, although in fairness, Tom Tate's having to fight out Colin Harrison in the orange and black cars. They go through the outer loop.
Great job from Tom Tate to just sit and be patient. He's not going to hold up Colin Harrison in this battle, knowing that there's no championship points in the Dark Horse Legends class that have just switched hands. He's still running second on the track, although the round 3 number 70, Oleg Gorshov, a long-time competitor with the round 3 team, stepping into Mustang Challenge for the very first time. He's closing in as well. John, let's cast our minds back to mid-Ohio, because Chris Clark was flying. He had maybe the most pace of any of the Dark Horse Legends drivers. However, a couple of mistakes, including penalties, have cost him the championship lead. And Tom Tate has 130 points in a championship advantage right now, which is going back to what Guy Cosmo said, keep it easy, stay out of trouble. He's only losing 30 championship points behind Chris Clark right now. This is about managing a race, managing a difficult racetrack, especially given free practice 2 yesterday effectively nullified any advantage that the drivers were going to get with the wet conditions, totally unrepresentative of what we see today.
Yeah, this is the exactly 180 degrees opposite in terms of what we saw at the Circuit of the Americas, where we had dry practice and then both the races were either wet or certainly greasy, and everybody was kind of just working their way through. Chris making the best of the better conditions. Ryan Persing is his Paley Motorsport teammate, who is in 6th overall and 6th therefore in Dark Horse Legends. Again, there's a bit of a gap there, there's 7 seconds there. Fastest lap of the race so far, Devin Anderson just put it in last time around, and it's a sub 2-minute lap, 1:59.007. Well, there was a famous Bond movie that involved him driving a Ford, wasn't there? Back in the day. Answers on a postcard at IMSA Radio. 1:59.007, 1:59.082. Cole Loftsgaard. The gap is down to half a second as they come over the brow towards the heel of the boot, turn number 8. And that tech sport. I now that I've realised that, Arjuna, I can't see the side of Devon's car without thinking of Maverick's helmet on Top Gun.
And we're gonna have to get the answer as to what, if that was the intention from Devon after this race. But he is really locked in right now, and he started off with a car that seemed to roll off really strongly, but now that Cole's been able to settle back into the rhythm, what we're seeing is not the concertina that we see under the brakes necessarily, but these are heavy cars, lots of power, and around a track like this at high speed, John, there's not many passing opportunities. And so for Devon, that first lap, he saw the chance, went for it, but didn't step over the limit. It didn't quite work out. But going back to championship consistency, he's not putting himself in uncomfortable situations, which is what you need at a track that's been described to me like an elevated street circuit.
That's actually a really good description, particularly in the part where the leaders are now, because there's not even a car's width of grass between the edge of the racing surface and the unforgiving triple layer Armcore safety barriers. A little bit more in some places, notably at turn 10, there's a lot of runoff and a bit of gravel there, but that's a high speed entry to that, and that's a safety consideration. Down to turn 6 for the leaders. Again, get it wrong there, and you're going to make contact with the wall on driver's right. These two, by the way, have now pulled out 2.6 seconds on Sandy Satulo, who isn't able to live with them at the moment. But may I just point out, ladies, gentlemen, viewers, listeners, and all those excited about watching Mustang Challenge North America, there's a little numbered clock on the top right of our screen that says, top left of our screen rather, that says 33 minutes and 33 seconds still to go. There's plenty of racing here, and as Arjuna was explaining right off the top of the show, there is a way to set these cars up where you're good on the short run, where you're possibly even good early on when the car's full of racing fuel, or where it's better at the end when the Michelin tyres have worn a little bit, but when the car is lighter. And as yet, we don't know who's still got cards to play in terms of their performance potential, Arjuna.
And who's been saving the Michelin tyres. I said this is a high speed track for these cars, but it's also high energy for the Michelin tyres, and a lot of right-hand corners that put load onto the left front. And there were some comments made that about 20 minutes in, we may start to see some drivers struggling just a little bit. So we're coming up on the 15-minute threshold, getting close to that 20-minute mark. Let's keep an eye out on Lofsgaard and Anderson in particular, who have consistently been amongst the quickest on track. Another pair of 159s for them last time around, as you compare them to the Dark Horse Legends leaders, closer to the 202s for the likes of Gorshkov, who's made his way past Tom Tate for second.
Yeah, that was a good move, actually. Gorshkov caught and passed. He had to deal with Doug Peterson. Colin Harrison is going forwards. He's got past both of the Dark Horse Legends leaders in that orange and black number 21. And now, well, he's nearly 10 seconds behind Tate Pritt for his next position, but don't... What was his time last time around? He had a bit of traffic. He's not that far away time-wise. Let's see if he can do a little bit of catching up. Joseph Derdrich for Wheelhouse, just done his fastest lap of the race. He sits in 4th, just off the podium in Dark Horse Legends. And also Nick Smither Racing's Walter Bobco. He's going nicely as well. Nick Smither, who started at the back, has worked his way up to 13th position, so 5 places gained there for the man with his name above the door of Nick Smither Racing. Number 58 car, now just a second behind Joe Dedricks. Can he close him down? We'll keep an eye on that one. Coming to turn 10, another little battle further down the field, as they were waiting for Chris Clark to come through. Colin Harrison. So that was Ryan Persing and Tate Pritt, actually. Tate Pritt in the light blue car, just half a second or so behind Ryan Persing. They've just gone across the line under our feet at the right at the top of the grandstand that overlooks the start-finish line. Not only do we get to see quite a bit of the track here, but also look down the valley and see any weather coming up from that area, from down towards Corning and that sort of vicinity. Tends to be where the bad weather comes from, but at the moment, high clouds, air temperature 75 Fahrenheit, that's 24 Celsius. Track temperature 104 Fahrenheit, that's 40 Celsius. Just in the break there, I was talking to some of our colleagues at Spa for the CrowdStrike Spa 24 hours this weekend. 40 Celsius in the air, in the shade. So 104 Fahrenheit for those guys in the Belgian hills, the Ardennes. And of course this series going to that race next year. As we had the Invitational for Le Mans, a second huge 24-hour race guest appearance for Ford Mustang. Ford becoming the first American manufacturer to have a support race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. I think they will repeat that when they go to the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Le Mans Spa, next year. A different challenge to the 8.5 miles of Le Mans, with just over 4 miles around the Ardennes circuit, Arjuna, but I can't wait to see these cars on the roller coaster like circuit that is Spa-Francorchamps.
I got to break the news to Cole Lofsgaard earlier today, and he was very excited when I mentioned that. Was like, ooh, eyes lit up when I mentioned Spa. And we should also mention that Paley Motorsports, the partnership that they had with AAG, the Advanced Auto Group for this season, this is one of the events where I think that partnership is paying dividends. Sam Paley is over at Spa and probably watching his team supports Chris Clark, and in this fight with Oleg Gorshov, slips up the inside down towards turn 1, and a change in the Dark Horse Legends class.
Now, can Chris cut back and try and get the run out of turn 1? I don't think so. Gorshkov has taken that lead in the number 70 car. So now we have round 3 racing cars with the stars on the side, leading in both of the categories. Well, Oleg has hunted down the leader. Remember, the grid was set on championship points, so there were some drivers who perhaps haven't had the start to their seasons that they wanted, but are quick drivers who are slightly out of position, and this is what we're seeing happening now. Race control, by the way, just letting everybody know that Doug Peterson from Peterson Racing, number 87, in 11th overall at the minute, he's on his final warning for track limits. Gorshkov getting a little sideways there and losing a bit of momentum. Is that the opportunity for Chris Clark to close back down on him? One thing I will say about Chris Clark, Arjuna, is that he is exceptionally tidy as a driver. And you were talking about the Michelin tyres. He doesn't seem to be a man who abuses his tyres in his driving. He still gets good lap times, but the car's not moving around. He did have the wipers going there for a moment, which I'm not sure was entirely necessary. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Devin Anderson has dropped 1.5 seconds away from the other Trim Techs round 3 racing, R3R car, and that is the leader, Cole Lofsgaard. Second for Tech Sport, Devin Anderson, and round 3's gap back to the 3rd place car, 6 seconds down to Sandy Satula.
You talked about Chris Clark's tidy driving. I think what we're seeing now about halfway through is those making those strides forward have saved a bit more of the Michelin rubber, and Gorshkov on debut in the Mustang Challenge, John, I think is making a very strong impression as well. Like I mentioned, he's been racing with Round 3 Racing for quite a while. He was actually on the cover of Grassroots Racing magazine last year with one of his grassroots cars. So I actually think this is a great step for him into this IMSA paddock, in a car that probably is similar to some of those grassroots cars that he was racing before, heavy but with plenty of power. He's been doing some prototype competition earlier this year alongside of Round 3 Racing, but to learn from Cole Lofsgaard, the championship leader, it's a very nice launch pad to jump into the series.
Arjuna Kangapati and me, John Hindorf, in the booth as we come down to just a couple of minutes or so away from half distance. If you follow us regularly, you know that we always highlight some cars that are either working hard in their classes, but today we're looking at the 4 entries from Wheelhouse Motorsport. Slightly differing fortunes. Wheelhouse number 7 is 3rd overall and in Dark Horse at the moment. That's Sandy Satulo. He's 6 seconds away from the lead. The number 8 car is Tom Tate. He's 10th overall, but that's 3rd in the blue numbers of the Dark Horse Legends class. And the number 63, Joseph Dederichs, that is 4th in that category. Sadly, the driver that hasn't had the look today, Will Lucas, with a little off at turn 5 in the number 34 car. But I want to say something about Will as we have a look at our Mustang Challenge team update for Wheelhouse Motorsports. Fair play to Will Lucas, our junior, because he got that car, even though he had to drive across a bit of gravel, he got that Wheelhouse number 34 into the orange overlap. That's where there's a gap between the barriers. He did not adversely affect anybody else's race. And I say chapeau to Will for that.
And that's such a big part of these races when you go back to the conversation of setting up for the short run and the long run, because that a safety car right then would have benefited anyone who would set up for a short run. So correct, love that Will had the awareness to find one of those overlaps and avoid putting this race under the purview of the safety car. What we should also call out though, John, is Mustang Cup champion in 2025, but the Spa Invitational race that the Mustang Challenge will get to participate in next year is not just going to be open to Mustang Challenge competitors, both in America, but it's going to be expanded out to Mustang Cup competitors in the US and in Australia as well. So it's going to be a global grid that heads to Spa next year, and I think that's going to be great to celebrate the success of the Dark Horse R. Many parts can be purchased from the dealerships down the road, but across the world.
Australia, the first of the non-US Dark Horse Championships, Dark Horse R Championships, and it's growing very quickly indeed. Races on some of the top championship weekends there, and talking to our colleague Richard Creel, who's one of the voices for supercars this season. In fact, we'll find out who gets the job permanently in a week or so. He's been telling us how much fun it's been watching those cars on the other side of the world. Ryan Persing now in the mostly white Mustang, stays on his racing line, trusts his braking, and was right to do so. Really nice work on the downhill braking area, with Ryan Persing holding off Tate Pritt in that very handsome light blue Mustang with the monochrome stars and stripes on the roof. Got some great liveries here, some of them throwbacks, some of them very, very up to date indeed. So Tate Pritt in the 98, he can move around left and right to try and intimidate or break concentration of the driver in the 29 car ahead of him. Pearly Motorsport with the AG, but the defending driver cannot do that. You make a move and you stick to your line. So now, once Ryan decides to stay on the racing line, he can't then close the door on the inside in reaction to what that blue car is doing behind him. That would be called for blocking, and I think that is the clearest interpretation of that rule that we have here in IMSA in pretty much any form of motorsport in the world. And there's a few series who would do well to apply it the same way as our race control do here in IMSA. No reactionary moves. If you want to take a defensive line, take it. If you want to trust yourself on your brakes, like Ryan Persing is doing right now, then you hold your line and you say to the guy behind me, you think you can outbrake me? All right, you try and send it, but I'm going to take my racing line.
And the problem that
last corner on the track. Sorry,
and
go
the
ahead,
problem, John, that Tate Pritt has been having is that the braking zones aren't really long enough to pull alongside of the car in front. He continues to show himself in the mirror, make his presence known, but if the braking zones aren't deep enough to get alongside, you can't then command space down into the corner, and so he's having those looks, slowing some of his momentum down, but not offering aggressive moves up, because what that does at a track like this, where the camber of the track can influence your racing line so significantly, is you can really cause some nasty moments if you get slightly out of sorts, camber falling on the wrong side of the track. Not such an issue in the climb up into the bus stop. That's something you're more concerned about down through the boot.
I've got to say, this is great driving between both of these drivers. There's respect here, there's real competition. They're not really slowing each other down that much. They're maybe giving themselves half or 3/4 of a second, not an insignificant amount of time. But Ryan Persing in the lighter number 29, he takes the defensive line in the middle of the road there as he comes up through the climbing turn at turn 7. Hardly any braking required there at all. Tighter line from the chasing Tate Pritt in the automatic racing light blue car. Trying to get the power on to diamond the corner off and get the power on a little bit early. No defensive line at all at turn 8 from the car that currently holds 5th. This is the battle for 5th and 6th. Down the inside again, but no, there's just not enough braking going on there. Exactly as Arjuna said. Think of this like, also if you watch motorcycle racing, MotoGP for example, you see this a lot where the rider behind might have a faster bike, but just can't get into position where he can roll up alongside, and then once you get enough alongside, as you come into the braking area, you brake, and then you just roll off the brake and take the apex away, and that's what's in motorcycle racing is called a block pass. We're not seeing that happen now. Really defensive into turn 1 from Ryan Persing. He's gone a little bit wide here. Is this the opportunity for Tate? He closes in, but then they're back into that snake of the S's that runs uphill, Arjuna. He's got to get a good run out of the top of the hill here.
It's almost as like he catches a bit too early. Sometimes you want to be a bit further behind down into turn 1, climbing up the 110 feet of elevation. Before then, you slingshot on the run into the bus stop chicane. Ryan Persing missed out on Mid-Ohio because he was attending his high school graduation, so we're glad to have him back. And I'm sure this is a story that he was telling at his high school graduation. I chose to be here instead of racing my Mustang Challenge car around Mid-Ohio. This is how much it means to me.
Well, I'm glad to see his brake lights flash on there at turn 6, because coming in to the bus stop, the inner loop, I thought he'd missed his braking point by miles. Tate Pritt was on the brakes, and there was not a scintilla of pressure on the brake pedal for that 5th place number 29 car. Let's watch them as they come into turn number 8 now, and again the Paley AAG car doesn't feel the need, the driver not feeling the need to take that defensive line. That's confident driving from Ryan Persing ahead of Tate Pritt. This is the best battle on the circuit at the moment. Cole Loftegard's pulled out 3.3 seconds on Devin Anderson, who's got 4.3 on Sandy Sotelo. So we're not going to take our eyes off this battle for 5th and 6th, Arjuna, and it's an absolute cracker. Two drivers with different styles. Now here's an opportunity. The blue car gets to the right-hand side, but can't get to the quarter panel. This is as close as he's been. He's got to let the brake off right now. Go down the inside, get to the apex, which he does. But there's still more pace, even not on the optimum line. Taken into the corner by Ryan Persing. This man is a demon late breaker.
Minister of Defense right now in upstate New York is Ryan Persing, and very committed there from Tate Pritt into turn 1. The most aggressive that we've seen him so far. The tension starting to rise with 15 minutes left to go. John, these drivers are, I would argue, slow right now compared to the rest of their class, but also compared to Oleg Gorshkov, who is within a couple of seconds of our race leaders right now. It's a great fight to watch, but all that Ryan Persing is doing right now is looking in the rear view mirror and driving over his shoulder, which can be a very uncomfortable thing to do for 20-odd minutes.
The amount of concentration that is required here from both of these drivers. I like Persing's attitude. He knows, he seems to have a sixth sense, because you can't drive looking in your mirrors. You just can't do it. You will eventually make a mistake. But he has some kind of sixth sense of when he needs to take a slightly more defensive line. Another opportunity down at turn 8. Tate goes to the right-hand side, but he's not close enough. I think turn 1 is probably still his best opportunity. Maybe here. Is the crossover going to work? There was a slight mistake coming out at 8 into 9 from the 5th place, the white car. But even then, no panic from Ryan Persing. More panic from me in the commentary booth. In fairness, that is not a headline. But cool, calm, collected, and still in 5th place for Ryan Persing. Again, a different exit line, taken out the final corner. This time, alongside as they cross the line, there was barely a hood's length between them. Now, down into turn 1. Can he get the car stopped? Tate Pritt goes through, and finally, after how long? After how many laps? That was a calculated manoeuvre, and Tate Pritt goes up into 5th position. Ryan Persing with obdurate defence. Clean from both drivers, respectful, but I expect to see that automatic racing number 98 blue Mustang Dark Horse R just pull away a little bit now.
I'm not sure if Ryan Persing is dealing with a similar issue to what Cole Lofsgaard was encountering at Mid-Ohio, but that car is struggling on power down, and you noticed it out of the final corner. Tate Pritt charging bull, trying to steam up the inside before he even got to the start-finish line. I would expect Ryan Persing maybe also lighting up the rear tires a little bit too much. There's not too many heavy traction zones, but no traction control in these cars. Any slight slip up of those rear tires, and you'll feel it, that's for sure.
Plenty of talk. We talk about power. People brag, don't they, about power when you've got the top trumps out or you're sitting with your friends at a car meet. You talk about how much horsepower the car's got, but what you actually drive, and particularly in race situations, when you are racing someone else, what you race is torque. Torque is your friend. And this beautiful 5-litre V8 normally aspirated engine makes a great noise. Great intake noise from the road car as well. That little carbon fibre air intake. And twin throttle bodies for the injection, and the intake noise is almost as addictive as the tuned exhausts on these cars. Mate that with a 6-speed race transmission. Even on the road cars, it's the Tramic transmission. It's absolutely fabulous. Clicks in with such precision. 3-pedal car, so you do have to use all 3 pedals. The race and the road cars have a very, very sophisticated rev match system on it, so that as you change down, you don't have to blip the throttle. I've even heard professional racing drivers tell me it is one of the best they've used. I've got to be honest, when I drove one of the road car versions of the Dark Horse down to Italy from the UK, I turned that off. I learned to heel and toe when I was about 13, and I wanted to do it myself, so I had a bit more control on it. But I did put it back on just to see what it was like, and my goodness, yes, it is good. So precise. But there is something about a nicely executed heel and toe down change, particularly if it's wet, that is a thing that you can congratulate yourself, even if you only get a percentage of them right. Leader then, with just on 11 minutes to go, is still Cole Lofsgaard. Last time around, a 2 minutes .5. Fastest lap of the race, Devin Anderson on a 1:59.007. That was some time ago now, though. And the gap as they go across the line has just eased out to 4.2 seconds. Again, a 10th lost there by Devon on call. Sandy Satulo, another couple of tenths slower, but still on the 2-minute mark. 2:02 for Ethan Law. Now, Ethan Law can't be too complacent here. He lost well over a second last time around to Tate Pritt. I mean, Ryan Persing has done Ethan Law a solid here because he's held Tate Pritt up long enough that I think it's going to be difficult for him to get back to 4th place, Ethan Law. But Tate Pritt in that blue automatic racing car, for me, one of the drives of the race. And in fact, he was the 4th quickest car last time around.
It was pretty quick actually in qualifying, John. I know we didn't get to use those times, but we had a handful of times actually set, and that includes in practice as well. So maybe hoping that tomorrow he'll get a chance to be a bit more aggressive on the race start and hunt down some of these drivers a little bit further forward. It's going to be very different conditions tomorrow as well, though, John.
Well, yes, and the other thing is that, of course, because we didn't use the times from yesterday, we've set the grid on the championship standings. I presume then we will use the fastest race laps here to set the grid for tomorrow. So that would put Devin Anderson on pole position as it stands right now.
So maybe a little bit to try and push for some of those a little bit further down to find some more speed. I saw Nicholas Smither. He's just punched in his fastest lap of the race as well. So definitely something to keep in mind, John. It will be very cool tomorrow, though, and I don't think these drivers are going to be disappointed after a hot and sweaty first race for them on Fast Friday.
Yeah, these are, in some ways, a throwback with that 6-speed stick shift, with no ABS, with a clutch shift, no paddles. And you really have to drive these cars. You've got to feel at one with them. Now, I'm just watching Devin Anderson and his times. He was a smidge quicker. Took a second out the leader last time. That's more than a smidge. 8.5 minutes to go, 8:20 to go. And here's what we were talking about. Are we seeing now Cole Loftsgaard, is he just easing his pace and pacing himself? Or has Devin Anderson left something in himself, in his Tech Sport Racing Ford Mustang Dark Horse R, and more importantly, in his Michelin tyres? And there is traffic. Walter Bobcore will be the first driver to go a lap down. And he puts his trafficator on to let the leader know which way to go by him. But Devin Anderson absolutely sees a potential here with the leader. In fact, actually, I think that was Drew Norbauer, wasn't it? Yes, it was. It was the Torre racing car. Walter Bobcore had already let the leaders go through. And we have a drive-through penalty for Nick Smither. Multiple track limits. No, it's a 10-second, not a drive-through, excuse me. A 10-second post-race penalty. He's in 5th at the moment, and he's only 4 seconds away from 2 drivers behind him. That's going to cost him 2 places at least. Oh, my goodness me.
And it's our reminder, John, that as much as this is a old school track in many ways, there are a couple of places where you do need to keep your eyes on track limits. Not often at the bus stop are you thinking about that, but straight through for Doug Peterson, skipping through the barriers in the way as well, but he's kept the car in one piece.
Well, I got myself confused with that penalty for Nick Smithers. He has got a 10-second post-race penalty, but he's got a drive-through as well. I was watching the race control channel and I saw his number come up, and I thought I'd misspoken the first time, but in fact it's a 10-second post-race time penalty and a drive-through as per race control, and they were assessed within 3 minutes of each other. So that is literally 2 laps, and he's off the track again at turn number 8, and that's where he'll be pulling that. That is taking an advantage, because you take so much more speed if all 4 Michelin tyres are over the curbs there. So he's going to have to come in, and this is going to drop him way back. So Paolo Salvatore, Stephen Veijer, Drew Nobile and Walter Bobco are all going to move up in the Dark Horse Legends. Peterson into the pit lane. Now, why has Doug Peterson come in?
Remember, he went straight at the bus stop, John, so maybe a slight issue there that did not feel comfortable heading back around, and instantly checking the left front. We've talked already about the amount of load that it's been taking, quick tire pressure checks, and as he made his way up to the top of the track as well, it was slowing down okay initially, but then just maybe didn't scrub off enough speed and makes the slink through those barriers. Front of the field, by the way, John, Cole Lofsgaard increasingly under fire. It's 2.5 seconds now that Devin Anderson sits back.
Nice job, by the way, from Doug Peterson in that multicoloured number 87, the 3D Immersional.com car, because not only did he decide to bail out of that without causing further problem, but he paused and had a good look around and waited for the marshals on that corner to give him the all clear to pull back onto the track. Well, we flagged this up earlier on. Arjuna Kankapati said don't count out what might happen in the closing stages. Now, what we don't know is whether Cole Lofsgaard is being too cool for school and just back timing it. There's 4 minutes to go. That'll be, I reckon, a couple of laps at the end of this one. It'll depend when he crosses the line, actually. And he has, over the last 3 laps, lost a good couple of seconds. It was 4.5, nearly 5 seconds. It's down to 2.7 now. And there's nothing more exhilarating and nothing that drives a driver, pun intended, and excites a driver than to see the car he's chasing getting bigger in front of him. And I would say that Devin Anderson is closed in again. It's another 0.3 last time around, and on this lap, where's he going to be? We mentioned about how smooth Chris Clark was. By the way, Chris Clark has dropped 13 seconds on Oleg Gorshov after Gorshev went through. Tom Tate now closing in on Chris Clark. So that one's not over either, and that was a good second last time around. So that's the Wheelhouse Motorsport 3rd position car in DHL. But the interest for us at the moment, Arjuna, is at the front of the field. 2.3 seconds, and it'll be another lap after this one. White flag next time around. This is going to be tight. We've got a grandstand finish coming.
And we know that Devin can make the move. He can get alongside if he's confident enough. The question is, will he be close enough? And talking to Cole Lofsgaard, John, he was very clear. He's about to turn 32 years old. He's looking for the next step in his racing journey. And part of the appeal of Mustang Challenge was the path forward, the pyramid that Ford Racing with their development program wants to build. And he's being hunted down by one of those development driver programs. Cole is here to make a name for himself and started off the season so well. But Mid-Ohio, the struggles with the power delivery. He was struggling, John, to get the car driving off the corner with the wheels still turning. He had to wait for the car to be straight before you get the power down, and he still was able to extend his championship advantage. Those are the weekends that make the difference and really make you stand out compared to your competition.
Nick Smithers pulled another drive-through penalty, and he hasn't served the first one yet. He's going to have to go and visit the race control here. That will be converted into time penalties at the end. He's going to drop right down to the end of DHL, Dark Horse Legends. Right, a minute to go. The white flag should be out and is out. One further circuit to go. Loftsgaard pulls out a 2 minutes, 0.1. That's his fastest lap for some time. He's been holding on to a little bit of performance, maybe. 2 minutes, 0.5, so it's back out to nearly 3 seconds. It was nicely judged by Cole Loftsgaard. Absolutely brilliantly done by this still relatively young driver. Yes, in his 30s now, but plenty of racing ahead of this man into the inner loop. Doesn't take too much curb, doesn't unsettle the Dark Horse R. His car looks pretty well set now. And Devin Anderson has judged the race well, but he's going to be somewhere in the region of 3 seconds, 2.5 seconds short as they come to the checkered flag in half a lap's time. In the legends, Oleg Gorshov goes across the line to start his last lap in that number 70. It's another one of the round 3 racing. It's gonna be double delight for R3R. Already coming to turn number 8 for our leader. Cole Loftsgaard back in form after the disappointments of Mid-Ohio. 2 corners to go. Down through the gearbox, corks the front end into the corner. Track 109 Fahrenheit now, 43 Celsius. Those front Michelins protesting, but he's held it together. He's held the car and himself together. And it's a perfectly judged race 1 here at Watkins Glen International. Round 3 racing. Cole Loftsgaard takes the win from in second place, Devin Anderson. It was 1.8 seconds at the line. Loftsgaard easing his pace to a 2:01.6, but that was perfectly judged. Sandy Satulo should be next through and is for Wheelhouse Motorsports in 3rd. Then it'll be Ethan Law and Tate Pritt. Tate Pritt will be cursing how long it took him to get past Ryan Persing. Ryan did nothing wrong, he was brilliant. There goes Ethan Law. Tate Pritt only 4 seconds at the line, took 2.5 seconds out of Law in the last lap alone. Ryan Persing and Colin Harrison will round up the Dark Horse field. And as far as the legends are concerned, it'll be Oleg Gorshov. Gorshov then coming round in round 3's racing number 70 car. Same livery, same team, same result in Dark Horse Legends as in Dark Horse. Out to the wall for the final time. Goes to the pit wall to celebrate and honour the team. And comes through to win it. And in fact, he's got past Ryan Persing on the last lap. Ryan Persing's had a problem and dropped way back. So that was a 7th place overall for the Dark Horse Legend winner. And where's Colin Clark for Pearley Motorsport in the number 9 car? Not yet come through. There he goes now. Tom Tate, only 3 seconds back at the line. And you've just got to wonder, Arjuna, if Tom Tate could have made his move a bit earlier, a bit like Tate Pritt actually, if he could have, both of those drivers could have got higher up the field if they could have disposed of some of their competitors earlier. But a great win for round 3 racing in both of the championships. Sorry, Ryan. Sorry, Arjuna.
They were looking for the clock to extend for a couple more minutes, but what a great way to open up this weekend. Back at Watkins Glen with these Mustang Challenge cars for the first time in a couple of years. We were here in 2024, didn't get a chance to come back here last year. It's fast, it's flowing, and a driver's favorite. And I've got to give kudos, by the way, to Oleg Gorshov. 21 seconds clear at the front of the Dark Horse Legends class in his first outing in the car. Massive tip of the hat to him.
Cole Loftsgaard then brings the Trimtex car down the pit lane, and he will pick up the VP Racing checkered flag and take that to victory lane. I think we can say that was a pretty well judged 45-minute plus race for Cole Loftsgaard for round 3 racing. I've got to give some respect to Devin Anderson as well, who gave up a little bit of ground in the middle third of the race, but came back very strongly towards the end. Only 2 seconds by the time we got to the end. Tech Sport in second and Wheelhouse Motorsports, Sandy Sotelo in third. Then Ethan Law and Tate Pritt coming through in fourth and fifth. Tate Pritt having a great battle with Ryan Persing earlier on, with probably cost him a shot at fourth, possibly even third, actually. Oleg Gorshkov in seventh wins the Dark Horse Legends ahead of Chris Clark in ninth, and Tom Tate will be on the third step of that box. Joe Dedricks pulls up to 11th position ahead of Paolo Salvatore, Steve Weiser. Nick Smither with 2 drive-throughs and a 10-second penalty gets shunted down to 14th position. I suggest that might even be worse than that by the time everything is applied. Drew Nobar and Walter Bobko. Doug Pedersen in the pit lane, and Will Lucas, the unlucky Will Lucas for Wheelhouse Motorsports, didn't finish the race, but he was very respectful to his competitors and made sure he didn't cause a neutralisation. Well, about the only thing that Cole Loftegard struggled with was untangling the VP Racing checkered flag that he'd been given. He puts that on the carbon fibre rear aerofoil of his Dark Horse R, and even without me looking very carefully at the numbers, Arjuna, that's another race win. That means a further improvement on his championship situation.
And the battle between him and Devin Anderson is not done this weekend. Tomorrow I expect both of them to make small adjustments to try and fire off a little bit quicker, because track position is clear, it is important. If Devin Anderson had held on to the lead on that first lap, would it be Cole Loftegard standing in victory lane? Well, that's a question that only Devin's really going to be wondering.
Fastest lap of the race for Devin Anderson. I reckon that'll put him on pole position tomorrow. Right alongside him will be Cole Loftegard. It's going to be Sandy Sotelo and Ethan Law for your top 4. Side-by-side racing. Tremendous stuff. Bad luck for Will Lucas. He'll be back tomorrow, as will Arjuna Kankapati and me, John Hindhaugh. Thanks to Jordan up in Concord and the rest of our on-site and off-site production team.